You know, we human beings are marvelous creatures, endlessly inventive, endlessly restless. We can turn anything, absolutely anything, into a project. We take the simplest act of living and make it into a strategy for improvement. We can't just be, we must become. And that, my friends, is our favorite game, the grand pursuit of progress. We are, from the moment we can toddle across the carpet, trained to reach for the toy, the grade, the job, the promotion, the enlightenment. It's all the same motion, an arm stretching into the future, grasping for something that never quite lands in the hand. And yet, the reaching feels so noble, so purposeful, that we rarely stop to ask, where exactly do we think we're going? You see, this craving to advance, this deep cultural hypnosis, comes from a magnificent misunderstanding. We have confused the unfolding of life with the climbing of a ladder. And so we imagine that reality itself is a staircase leading upward to something holier, purer, more real than where we are right now. But life, as it happens, is not a ladder at all. It's a dance. And when you dance, you don't aim for a particular point on the floor. You don't say, I'm dancing to get to that corner, because the point of dancing isn't to arrive, it's to move. The music gives meaning to the motion, not the destination. Still, our minds insist otherwise. They whisper, yes, that's beautiful, but surely I must evolve. Surely there must be higher planes, deeper wisdom, greater states of consciousness, waiting for me. And of course, the universe humors you. It will give you all the levels you wish to climb, because the cosmos itself loves to play hide and seek through your seeking. But here's the trick. Every rung of that ladder is made of imagination. You climb, and the higher you go, the thinner the air becomes, until, finally, you reach the top, only to find the ladder standing on a cloud. The game of progress is a magnificent illusion. It feels meaningful because it keeps the ego employed. It gives the me a reason to exist, a mission, a narrative arc, a heroic quest. And that's why even spiritual progress can become the most seductive trap of all. We begin to compete in holiness. We measure peace of mind by the clock, compassion by statistics, and enlightenment by comparison. But who is doing the measuring? Who is climbing? Who is this phantom hero of your story, struggling toward the summit of reality? When you turn to look for the climber, you'll find only space, vast, aware, and strangely peaceful. It's a little like trying to polish a mirror that's already spotless. The more vigorously you scrub, the more you smudge it, because you, the polisher, are the very mark you're trying to erase. And so, the wise have always laughed gently at our solemn efforts to improve ourselves spiritually, because the self that seeks to improve is the very illusion from which we long to awaken. The harder you chase the better version of you, the further you drift from the stillness that was never missing. Progress, in the worldly sense, has given us marvelous things, ships, music, medicine, and 1,000 ways to stay busy. But progress, in the spiritual sense, is rather like running on a treadmill, a heroic, sweaty performance that goes absolutely nowhere. You can't advance toward what you already are. You can only tire yourself out until you finally sit down, panting, and realize you never left home. That's why I say, the temptation of progress is the first great illusion, the mind's attempt to turn eternity into a staircase. But eternity doesn't move forward. It unfolds in all directions at once. So perhaps the only real progress is to stop measuring it, to see that the beginning and the end are one and the same, that you were never meant to arrive, only to wake up to the fact that you're already here. Now, once the mind grows weary of chasing ordinary progress, wealth, fame, knowledge, it does something very clever. It reinvents the same game, but now it calls it spiritual. It says, ah yes, I'm done with material ambition. I'm after something higher, enlightenment, ascension, expanded consciousness. And with that, it paints a new ladder, more radiant than the last, and starts climbing once again. We create charts and maps and cosmic thermometers for measuring our spiritual temperature. We talk about vibrations, frequencies, levels of awareness, as though the infinite were a video game, and the goal were to reach level 7 before the universe logs us out. But, my dear friends, consciousness does not exist in stacks. There are no floors in eternity. There is no spiritual penthouse reserved for the enlightened elite. You see, when we speak of levels, we are trying to draw lines on the ocean. We take what is fluid, seamless, and alive, and chop it into tidy little slices so that the intellect can feel safe. The mind adores divisions because divisions create identity, and without identity, the poor mind feels homeless. So we build these hierarchies from dense matter to subtle energy, from ego to soul to spirit, from root chakra to crown. And we forget that these are not rungs to be climbed, but metaphors for something that cannot be measured at all. A metaphor, like a finger pointing to the moon, is useful until you start worshipping the finger. And that's exactly what happens. You meet someone who claims to be on a higher level, and immediately the comparison begins. Ah, she's awakened, and I'm not. He's transcended the ego, and I'm still trapped. But this is just the ego playing hide and seek in new robes. It's still saying, me, I am less awakened than you. It has turned humility into yet another form of vanity. You see, the ego doesn't mind being wrong or right, humble or proud. It just wants to be something. Anything will do. And so it will even become spiritually inferior if that gives it an identity to hold on to. But the truth is that the idea of levels is itself the great illusion, the very veil that hides what's already awake. Consciousness doesn't evolve, it expresses. It doesn't climb, it unfolds. It doesn't become more, it becomes apparent. Imagine, if you will, a mountain reflected in a lake. When the wind blows, the reflection ripples, and it seems as though the mountain itself is dancing. But the mountain hasn't moved at all. Only the surface shifted, creating the appearance of ascent and descent. Your consciousness is that mountain. The ripples are your thoughts, creating the illusion of levels, of progress, of becoming. But even this illusion is part of the play. For without the sense of journey, how would you ever taste the joy of returning home? Without the mirage, how would the desert reveal the oasis that was always inside you? So, the wise do not condemn the idea of levels, they simply see through it. They climb without climbing. They seek without seeking. They let the idea of ascent burn itself out in the fire of its own futility. And when that happens, when you stop measuring your awakening like a school report card, you discover something quietly astonishing, that every level was only a way of looking, and the one who was looking was the stillness behind every change. The mirage of levels, it is beautiful, necessary, and false. It's how the infinite entertains itself, by pretending to be a beginner and a master, a sinner and a saint, all while never moving an inch. And when you see that, really see it, you stop trying to climb out of the dream, because you realize the dream was never a trap at all, but a mirror. And in that mirror, what's looking back at you is not the seeker or the teacher or the enlightened one. It's the whole universe, smiling and saying very softly, you were never in the hierarchy. You were the ground beneath it all. Now, if we've seen through the mirage of levels, what's left? If the ladder of progress is an illusion, then what is it standing on? Ah, yes, that is the marvelous secret. Beneath all the striving, beneath the climbing and the falling, there lies what I like to call the 0th level. It's not the first step. It's not the bottom of the staircase. It's the ground the staircase stands on. You can't build it, you can't reach it, you can't fall from it, because you've never not been on it. It's like asking a wave to find the ocean. The wave can search all it likes, but every crest, every crash, every ripple is already the ocean waving. The 0th level is not a state of consciousness, it is consciousness itself. It's not something you experience. It's that which experiences everything else. You can't step into it because you've never stepped out of it. You can't see it because it's what's doing the seeing. And that's precisely why it's so difficult for the mind to notice it's too close. You can't look at your own eyes without a mirror. And you can't grasp the self with thought, because thought is its reflection. Now, the curious thing is that this 0th level is not hidden from you, it's hidden as you. You are the very mystery you're trying to uncover. And the search, beautiful as it is a kind of cosmic game in which the self pretends to be lost so it can enjoy the delight of being found. But the finding, you see, is not the discovery of something new, it's the recognition of what never left. When you glimpse this, it's like suddenly realizing that the silence has been there underneath every sound, all along. Even while the music plays, the silence isn't gone, it's the space in which the melody appears. So too, this 0th level is the silence in which your thoughts, your emotions, your personality, and your entire life are dancing. Without that ground, nothing could exist. Not even the idea of you. People ask, how do I reach that state? And I say, by seeing there's no state to reach. The seeing is not an achievement. It's a recognition. It's like looking for your glasses, only to realize they're already on your nose. The joke of awakening is that you were never asleep. You were only dreaming that you were dreaming. Now, some people hear this and say, but that sounds terribly unromantic. You mean there's no great journey? No cosmic fireworks? No enlightenment trophy at the end? And I tell them, of course there are fireworks. The universe is made of them. But they're not the goal. They're the celebration of what has always been true. The 0th level is the end of the myth of progress. It's the point where seeking collapses into seeing, where becoming dissolves into being. And the marvelous part is that nothing needs to be removed or purified or elevated for this to be so. The sacred and the ordinary are not two different realms. The divine didn't hide behind the stars, it hid behind your eyes. So, the 0th level is not a higher dimension, it's the foundation of every dimension. It's what you were before you were born, what you'll be when you die, and what you are right now, pretending to be a person having a life. You see, the 0th level is not something you can proclaim or possess. It's not my awakening or your awakening. It's the recognition that there was never anyone separate to awaken. And when that's seen, there's an immense relief, like putting down a burden you didn't realize you were carrying. You stop trying to hold the sky up with your thoughts. And in that instant, something quiet happens. The whole world takes a deep breath with you. The trees are no longer objects. They're expressions of the same awareness that's looking through your eyes. The clouds are your own thoughts made visible, and the sound of the wind is the universe whispering, welcome home. For home, you see, is not a place you return to. It's what you never left. It's the ground beneath every ladder, the stillness beneath every wave, the silence behind every song, the hidden 0th level, the one you could never fall from, never reach and never lose, because it is you. Now, once you begin to sense this 0th level, this ground that was never lost, something peculiar happens. You might think, well, then the search is over. There's nothing left to do. And yet, somehow, life goes on, and the seeking continues. You keep reading books about awakening, attending retreats, watching videos like this one. You meditate, you chant, you fast, you pray. And every now and then you stop and wonder, if I'm already it, why am I still seeking it? Ah, yes, that's the beautiful paradox. You see, the seeking doesn't stop because it was never a mistake. It's the universe playing a game of hide and seek with itself. The self hides in the disguise of a seeker, just to enjoy the moment when the mask is lifted. So don't be in such a hurry to abandon the search. Don't scold yourself for wanting to find what you already are. That desire is divine mischief. It's God pretending not to know itself, just to feel the thrill of remembering. It's the cosmic hide and seek that never gets old, because every round is brand new to the one who's playing. Now, this doesn't mean we should make a career of spiritual frustration. The point of the game is not to get lost in it forever, but to realize you were the one hiding all along. The practices, meditation, devotion, inquiry, they are not steps on a ladder. They are waves on the same ocean. Their purpose is not to take you somewhere else, but to show you that there's nowhere else to go. Think of the Buddha sitting under the Bodhi tree. He didn't invent enlightenment, he simply ran out of things to chase. He sat so still that the seeking wore itself out, and in the quiet that remained, he laughed, because he saw that the seeker was never separate from the sought. You see, enlightenment isn't something you find, it's what happens when you stop pretending to be lost. It's the end of a wonderful masquerade, the moment when the dancer realizes that the dance and the dancer were never two. And yet, even after that recognition, life doesn't freeze into eternal bliss. The waves still rise and fall. You'll still stub your toe, still lose your temper, still get hungry and tired, but beneath it all, something soft hums. Ah, yes, this too is part of the game. You no longer seek to escape life. You begin to see that life itself was the path you thought you were walking. Some people, upon hearing this, say, so I should stop meditating, stop practicing? No. You might as well tell the wave to stop breaking. Do what you do, but know it for what it is, play. If meditation calls you, meditate. If prayer arises, pray. If you find yourself laughing at the absurdity of it all, laugh. For these are not attempts to reach God. They are ways for God to enjoy being you. The trouble comes only when you mistake the play for a problem, when you take the journey too seriously. That's when the funhouse turns into a prison. You can practice for 1,000 years and still be standing in the same place, because the place you're trying to get to is the one you're standing on. The moment you stop trying to grab the truth and simply let it be, you realize the whole search was like a dog chasing its tail. Round and round it goes, until at last, the poor creature collapses in exhaustion, only to discover that the tail was never apart from the dog. And what happens then? You laugh. The laughter of awakening isn't mockery. It's recognition. The cosmic joke has finally landed. You were the one you were looking for, but you had to go on the adventure to realize it. So, don't reject the seeking. Love it, cherish it, because the seeking is also the self pretending to be lost for the sheer joy of finding itself again. And when that's seen clearly, the search transforms into something else entirely. It becomes play, effortless, innocent, and utterly free. That, my friends, is the secret of the game. You can seek without believing you're missing anything. You can walk the path knowing the destination is right under your feet. And in that awareness, every breath, every heartbeat, every step becomes a homecoming. For the play was never about escaping the illusion. It was about recognizing who was dreaming it in the first place. Now, here we come to one of the most delightful and maddening truths of all the paradox of surrender. Everyone talks about letting go, giving up control, surrendering to what is. But the moment you try to let go, you've missed it. Because the very you that is doing the letting go is the same one that's been holding on all along. You can't surrender deliberately any more than you can tickle yourself. It's impossible, because the effort itself is the resistance. It's like trying to smooth the surface of water with an iron. The harder you press, the more ripples you make. And yet, curiously, surrender does happen all the time. It happens when laughter bursts out of you before you can think. It happens when you fall asleep, when you fall in love, when you lose yourself in music, or the sunset, or a child's face. For a moment, the I disappears, and life is simply living itself. That is surrender, effortless, spontaneous, free. The difficulty is that we mistake surrender for defeat. We imagine it means resignation, giving up on life, turning passive, becoming dull. But true surrender is not collapse. It's the relaxation of the grip. It's the moment the dancer stops controlling the rhythm and starts listening to it. The current of life has always been carrying you. You were simply pretending to paddle upstream. Now, this is where spiritual seekers often get tangled. They say, I've tried to surrender, but it doesn't work. I keep taking control again. Of course you do, because the very trying is the control. You're like a man trying to lift himself by his own shoelaces, tremendous effort, and yet not an inch of progress. So what do? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Not as an act of indifference, but as a recognition that the doer was never the one in charge. When you see clearly that every thought, every impulse, every attempt to surrender is also part of the great flow, then suddenly the effort relaxes of its own accord. That's the real secret. You don't do surrender. It happens when you stop pretending to be the doer. It's like being caught in a whirlpool. The more you struggle, the deeper you sink. But if you stop fighting, if you let yourself be drawn into the center, you find the stillness at the heart of the spinning the eye of the storm. And there, in the quiet middle, you discover something astonishing. The current isn't your enemy, it's you. You see, the ego's greatest fear is powerlessness, because its entire existence depends on the illusion of control. It's terrified that if it lets go, everything will fall apart. But what actually happens is the opposite. When you truly let go, not because you think you should, but because you've seen that holding on doesn't work, life begins to unfold with an effortless grace. You start to notice that things take care of themselves. Breathing happens. The heart beats. The world turns, all without your command. And you realize you were never holding it all together. You were simply dancing along with it, believing you were the choreographer. So, surrender isn't an act of faith. It's an act of sanity. It's the end of the exhausting attempt to be God from the outside. It's the recognition that you already are what you were trying to control. Now, when this is seen, something magical occurs. You stop needing to surrender. There's no longer a you, apart from life, who must give life permission to flow. There's only the flowing, effortless, spontaneous, miraculous. The river doesn't need to learn how to let go. It is letting go. Every bend, every rapid, every still pool is surrender in motion. And you, dear listener, are not separate from that river. You are its movement, its stillness, its sound, its silence. You are life surrendering to itself in every breath. And the great paradox is this: when you stop trying to let go, because the one who thought it was holding on was only another wave in the flow. So, if you ask me how to surrender, I'll tell you this: don't try. Don't not try. Just notice the effortless happening that was here before your effort began. Notice that the sky doesn't strain to be blue, nor the rose to bloom. They simply are what they are, radiant expressions of what cannot be forced. And when you see that, truly see it, you might laugh because the great cosmic joke will dawn on you. You've been floating all along, pretending to swim. When surrender finally dawns, there's no thunderclap, no chorus of angels, no announcement from the heavens. Instead, something much quieter happens, something so ordinary that you might miss it entirely. It's as though life exhales. And in that exhale, you realize it was never supposed to be extraordinary. You see, our trouble is that we expect enlightenment to feel different. We imagine halos and visions, glowing auras and divine music, as if awakening were a cosmic fireworks display to reward the faithful seeker. But when you actually awaken, you find yourself laughing, because it's so utterly simple. Everything is just as it was. The dishes still need washing, the bills still need paying, and yet everything shines. You notice the light falling on the floor in the morning, and somehow it's the first time you've ever seen light. You hear the wind moving through the trees, and it sounds like the voice of God speaking in leaves. You sip your tea, and the steam curling upward feels like a sacred offering, not because the world has changed, but because you've stopped insisting that it be something else. The ordinary becomes miraculous because you are finally present for it. You're not living one step ahead, imagining how things ought to be. You're here tasting what's already offered, and in that simplicity, everything blooms. Now, this is the part that baffles those still chasing the higher levels. They ask, is this all? Just this? And the answer is, yes, just this, completely, perfectly, magnificently this. The miracle was never hiding in the clouds. It was humming in the refrigerator, glinting in a puddle, pulsing in your veins. When you stop looking for the infinite somewhere else, you discover it was always peeking through the finite. The divine doesn't stand apart from the world. It wears the world as a disguise. It's the smile of a stranger, the cry of a baby, the ache of loss, the warmth of touch. Even the pain, even the confusion, even the boredom, all are movements of the same great dance. You see, we tend to divide life into the sacred and the profane, the spiritual and the mundane. But this is a false split. When you see clearly, you find that the sacred hides in the profane, the way the ocean hides in a single drop. To be fully human, completely human, is already to be divine, because divinity is not somewhere else. It's the very capacity to see, to feel, to be aware. So enlightenment doesn't remove you from life. It immerses you in it. You become, in the most delightful way, ordinary. You do the laundry. You make breakfast. You walk the dog. But now there's a lightness, a humor, a kind of inward smile, because the one doing these things isn't trying to reach heaven anymore. It's simply playing. It's like realizing that the music was never about getting to the final chord. The joy was in every note. And when that's understood, you stop rushing to the end of the song. You start dancing, listening, laughing, because the whole thing, from start to finish, was the point. This, my friends, is the ordinary miracle. To live without searching for meaning, because meaning is everywhere. To stop trying to become spiritual, because everything you touch is already spirit in disguise. To breathe without purpose, and find that breath itself is the purpose. And once this sinks in, something marvelous happens. The distinction between meditation and life disappears. You don't need to sit cross-legged to find peace. You can find it in washing your hands, in tying your shoes, in taking out the rubbish. For the enlightened mind, there are no sacred places, because every place is sacred. That's the punchline of all spiritual teaching. Not that you will transcend the human experience, but that you will finally live it completely, vulnerably, joyfully. You will see that being human is not a mistake to fix, but a miracle to celebrate. So, the ordinary miracle isn't something that arrives when the universe decides you've earned it. It's what happens the moment you stop trying to earn anything at all. It's when the game of I must improve gives way to the laughter of, it was perfect all along. And then you sit back, sip your tea, and smile. Not because you've conquered life, but because life has finally stopped pretending to be conquered. Now, after the quiet wonder of this realization, after the ordinary miracle has dawned, a new question arises. What happens next? If there's nowhere to go, no self to perfect, no goal to chase, then what on earth are we supposed to do? And the answer is as simple as it is mischievous. You go right back into the game. You see, Awakening doesn't eject you from life, it drops you back into it. Only now, you know it for what it is, a magnificent play. You stop being the desperate actor who thinks the play is real and become, instead, the delighted performer who knows it's a drama. You can still weep, still rage, still hope, and strive. But now there's a twinkle behind your eyes, because you know the stage from the scenery. That's what is meant by being in the world, but not of it. You don't retreat into some heavenly monastery in your mind. You walk, you work, you love, you stumble, just like everyone else. But the seriousness has dissolved. The heaviness of living has lifted. The Buddha, after enlightenment, didn't ascend into the sky. He walked to the nearest village and begged for breakfast. Jesus didn't stop attending dinners and weddings. He turned water into wine and kept the party going. You see, the awakened ones don't flee the marketplace, they return to it, barefoot and laughing, because they've discovered that the market itself was the temple all along. When you see this clearly, you begin to live playfully again, not as a cynic who says nothing matters, but as a child who whispers, everything does because it's all a game. You stop protecting yourself from the world and start participating in it. You paint, you sing, you build, you parent, you teach, not to become somebody, but to express what's already flowing through you. Now, this doesn't mean you turn into a saint. Awakening doesn't bleach away your personality. You'll still have your quirks, your moods, your preferences. You may still get cross when the kettle boils too slowly. But the difference is you're no longer trapped inside it. You can feel the anger, the joy, the fear, and the laughter, and yet you know that none of it sticks to you. It's a bit like watching clouds drift across the sky. You can admire their shapes, even get caught up in their beauty, but you no longer mistake them for the sky itself. And so you live your life like weather, ever changing, yet perfectly natural. In this way, the awakened person becomes astonishingly ordinary. They don't float above the ground, they plant gardens. They don't lecture you about detachment, they share a good joke, spill their coffee, and laugh about it. They don't avoid the world's messiness, they move through it lightly, knowing that the mud is part of the lotus. You see, this is the true meaning of freedom, not to escape the game, but to play it without being fooled by it, to pay your taxes, drive your car, argue with your spouse, but to do all of it as if you were improvising music, knowing that the discord is as essential to the song as the harmony. And here's the subtle magic of it all. When you stop demanding that life serve your plans, life begins to flow effortlessly. You act without calculation. You give without keeping score. You find yourself saying and doing the right things at the right moments, not because you've memorized some moral code, but because the whole universe is speaking through you. You've become, in a sense, transparent, a window through which life looks back at itself. And that is why the sages laugh, because after all, the seeking, the meditating, the striving and surrendering, you end up right where you began, sitting in the same chair, hearing the same birdsong. Only now you finally understand what it's been saying all along. You were never meant to leave the game. You were meant to remember that you are the game, the player, the board, the rules, and the prize. You were meant to play, to dance, to lose, and to find, to weep, and to laugh, knowing that none of it can stain what you truly are. That's what I mean when I say you return to the world. Not as the weary pilgrim dragging the past behind, but as the child who just discovered the sandbox again. The castle you build may wash away with the tide, but you will build again not for permanence, but for the sheer delight of building. And when the sun sets, when the curtain falls, you bow, smile, and whisper, "What a splendid show." And so, here we are at what you might think is the end. But, of course, there is no end. there never was. Life, you see, doesn't move from start to finish like a train on a track. It's more like the tide. It rises and falls, circles and returns, endlessly playing with itself. We began this conversation with the idea of progress, of climbing a ladder towards something greater. And look where we've arrived back at the ground. The 0th level, the place we never left. It's rather a cosmic joke, isn't it? The whole journey of becoming turns out to have been a dance in a single spot. We've been spinning in eternity, imagining direction, inventing destinations, and now we can finally laugh about it. The mind always wants a conclusion. It says, well then, what should I do with this knowledge? How do I live from now on? What's the takeaway? But truth has no takeaway, because it isn't an object to carry away. It's what's carrying you. So when you ask, what now? The answer is so simple, it sounds absurd. Now, just this, the hum of the refrigerator, the sound of your breathing, the rhythm of your heart, all of it is the one great event that never began and never ends. You see, enlightenment isn't the achievement of stillness. It's the recognition that stillness has been here all along, watching the play of movement. It's not about silencing thought, but about realizing that thought was never noise, only music. Every sound, every word, every heartbeat, another note in the eternal composition. So what remains? Nothing to seek, nothing to prove, nothing to hold. Only the simple joy of being exactly as you are, not as a task to complete, not as a philosophy to master, but as the direct experience of this moment, this living, breathing, ordinary miracle. And when you really see that, when you let it sink into your bones, the line between sacred and mundane disappears. You stop drawing boundaries between spirit and flesh, heaven and earth, God and self. You realize they were never two things to begin with. And that, perhaps, is the quiet secret behind every teaching, every scripture, every master's smile. That the truth was never hidden. It was simply overlooked because it was too obvious. It's right here, looking out through your eyes, listening through your ears, beating in your chest. So don't look for a moral. Don't expect a reward. The reward is the seeing itself. The moral is that there is none, and isn't that a relief? You don't have to fix the world or fix yourself. You simply live gracefully, foolishly, lovingly, and let the world fix itself through you. And if ever you forget, as we all do, that's part of the play too. The forgetting and the remembering, the sleeping and the waking, they are two sides of the same cosmic wink. Because even in your forgetting, awareness remains, watching itself pretend to be lost. So perhaps we can end this not with an answer, but with a smile. A smile that says, yes, I see. I see what you've been saying all along. And in that smile, the game continues, not because it must, but because it's beautiful. You stand up, stretch, maybe pour yourself another cup of tea, and realize that even that, the steam, the warmth, the taste, is enlightenment expressing itself as you, as this, as now. No conclusion, only this endless beginning. The play goes on, and somewhere, quietly, the universe laughs.